Our next panel discussion on EdTech enterprises and universities as architects of progressive learning, bringing a revolution together, is all set to explore how the synergy between EdTech enterprises and universities is sculpting future learning and making it more dynamic, inclusive, and accessible. Let's delve into the transformative dialogue and discover the future of learning together. Please put your hands together for our panelists who will share their expertise on the topic, and the moderator of this session, Serena Chang, the co-founder and chief product officer for Impelio. The stage is yours. Welcome.
All right, good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Great, my name is Serena Chang. We have here with us today Lisa, Steve, Karen, Tim, and we'll also be joined by Dr. Streisel. And our conversation today is really going to be around EdTech and educational enterprise as a progressive lever for university and progressive learning. So before we start our conversation, I know it's that time in the mid-morning when coffee's kind of worn low, you've been sitting still. So I'm actually going to invite everyone to stand up, panelists included. I know. And let's first, all right, let's stand up. Let's stand up. I know everyone's tired. You've probably just flown in. And as this lady's doing over here, pick one or two parts of your body that you either want to stretch because you've been sitting on a hard seat or an airplane. So I'm going to stretch my lower back. And then I'm going to invite everyone to take just 2 or 3 deep breaths. You can hear the breathing on the stage here. Just let yourself clear out. Yes, we've got a little asthma on the stage as well. So if you're wheezing, no big deal. All right, and let's all take one more deep breath together. Inhale. Exhale. All right, thanks everyone. We'll get our panel underway. So we'll start off with everyone just giving a quick bio. If you can share your name, where you're from, of course, a bit of what brought you here. But if you can also please end with just 1 or 2 sentences about your mission statement. You know, what is your company about? What's your passion in education? I think just providing 1 or 2 sentences about why you're here and why you have your company will just really help open this discussion up. So Lisa, I'll have you start.
Thank you. Because I have the microphone, I get to go first. That's delightful. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Lisa Andian. I am a director for a global solutions engineering team at Anthology. Anthology is a merger of 4 education technology companies. The one that I came from, you may recognize as Blackboard. So the learning, the nods and the heads, the learning management system that all of us who have attended school have used, particularly during the pandemic. We all became very familiar with learning management systems, particularly if we had children. So my team is the pre-sales team. So we accompany the account executive to visit our customers, and we're the ones that demonstrate the proof behind what we're saying, where we can solve people's problems, right? That's my team. We're the product experts. And my team is global, so I've got all the people all over the world. The other reason that I'm here is because I also, in the years that I've been working in education technology, and through my work in my doctorate, which is an education doctorate, by the way, apropos, is around women in leadership positions. And so I am a speaker around that topic, encouraging women to take positions of leadership in education technology or just in general. So that is really what I am here to talk about today. So thank you for joining us. And I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Steve Simmons. I'm the COO. My partner and I was just kind of self-promoted myself. I'm on the stage, so he's no longer CEO. That's how it works. Yeah, I'm the co-founder and COO of a company called Nylent, which is NIL Education Solutions. We are, I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with the NIL space, names, image, and likeness. If you follow college athletics, it means college athletes are now able to get paid. I'm not going to give away too much of this because I'm going to be talking about this afternoon, and I promise it's riveting, and I'm going to need you all to be here for that. But our focus is providing financial literacy, mental health well-being, and social media savvy for college athletes. My partner, 20 odd years in the Chicago Blackhawks organization. I worked with professional athletes on the finance side. And the one thing we learned is these guys and a lot of the female athletes are going bankrupt. They're becoming homeless, going to prison. All these things are happening because they are not given a proper level of education on the most basic levels. And it's a gap that needs to be addressed, and it's our opportunity to get in there and actually do something meaningful. So we look at it, our mantra is NIL's not 4 years, it's 40 years. We're trying to lay the groundwork for these athletes well after their playing years are over. So we're looking much further down the line as much as possible and trying to do something good in the process. So thank you.
And Steve, when are you speaking today?
I was told it's after lunch, so please don't eat a heavy lunch and get all tired and whatnot. Yeah, I think it's like 1:45 or something. I'll keep it short. I won't go the whole 30 minutes, but so
Stand up, stretch.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, if we can all do it down on the craps tables where everyone's all a lot more energetic, apparently that's fine too. But sometime
Well,
this afternoon.
We'll look forward to that. Hi, I'm Karen Tilstra. Nice to see you all. I can kind of see you, these lights. But I'm a co-founder of Creativity Effect. Creativity Effect, his name means the effect of creativity. So we help people find their creative voice because we believe everybody's creative with leadership potential. But few people believe that, and those that do believe it don't know what to do with it. So we help create for education, for healthcare systems, for anybody who wants to learn how to bring creativity and innovative practice into their lives. And we believe that that's how we're going to meet the challenges of the rapidly changing world. So we said everyone can work at their highest potential as the world continues to rapidly change. So glad to be here. Oh, here we go.
Good morning. I'm Tim Jackson. I have the privilege of working at an organization called SHAD Canada, which is based in Waterloo, Ontario, which is about an hour outside of Toronto. SHAD is a charitable organization that is a STEAM plus entrepreneurship organization, and our primary program is for grade 10 and 11 students who spend the month of July away from home at one of 22 universities across the country. Over the course of the month, they're exposed to university-level lectures, workshops, and they do a design challenge where they're asked to solve a large social problem using scientific or engineering principles. And so looking forward to the discussion for the next half hour or so.
Great, thank you. So my name is Serena Chang. I'm sure like many on stage and many of you, I wear several different hats that somehow all meld together. So I'm currently a PhD student doing my research in what I call integral or whole person education. And as it applies to the conversation today, the education model I'm building is really about holistic development of the learner, right? Not just intellectual development, but certainly kinesthetic. We had a little bit of a kinesthetic connection here with our stretching and our breathing, emotional, psychological, and for some of us, spiritual and religious development as well. And for me, all of that kind of comes into play. I co-founded a professional development education company 3 or 4 years ago called Impello. So we are focused working with university partners such as RIT. So I offer courses called Self-Design Studio what is now becoming a professional workplace advancement certificate. Again, where we're really guiding learners, whether they're students who are just graduating to mid-career professionals that are making career advances, to some of my favorite students who are late career learners who are like, great, we have 25 years experience, and how do I really situate myself to do something meaningful in this last stage of my career? So again, both my research and my company in Palo is all about whole person development applied to professional development. Great. So before we dive into our conversation with our panelists, I just kind of wanted to get a sense of who is in the audience, what your perspectives on education are. So who here is in EdTech or has your own education enterprise? Panelists included. All right. How many are educators yourselves? All right, a lot of educators. And then focus, I know our first panel was K-12, who are focused on younger students through high school. Great. And then who is higher ed and professional development and on? Okay, and I see we have some people who are certainly crossovers and have raised their hands for it all. So we've kept this panel discussion focused on a few questions. And if you want to insert a question or a comment as the panel is speaking, all of us would like to invite you into the conversation as well. So please raise your hand. And we'll also reserve a few minutes at the end of our sessions just to really open up to questions and answer from audience. How does that sound? Okay, got a few thumbs up and everyone here is on board, so I like that. All right, so to open it up, I'm going to invite our panelists to first answer, what is the gap? What is the gap in the marketplace? What is the gap in kind of the educational structure, in leadership that you're trying to address with your EdTech or your educational enterprise? So really kind of lay out some of the problem statements and how you and your company are really coming at providing a solution. And what I'll do is I'll invite Karen for you to speak to that first.
For me, I find the gaps in empathy. It could be students, faculty, parents, staff at a university. When I was working and teaching at a university, I noticed that understanding, even before technology, and I started equating it to a yoga class that my sister-in-law drugged me to. And I thought, how hard can yoga be? Well, when I got there, I was all the way in the back and there's mirrors everywhere. And I noticed the jokers in the front were the people that could do everything. And so I was just trying to keep up and not fall or make some embarrassing noise by doing downward dog. And at the end, I got through it. And one of the star students in the front said to me, I noticed in the mirror, you were having a hard time keeping up. Maybe if you listen better. And I thought, wow, downward dog, upward cat, flying bird, whatever. I said, I just am trying to get the language. And that really stuck with me because as I worked with university students as an educational psychologist, I found that before anyone could understand anything, everybody was trying, and people, students, faculty, and staff and parents, before they could even embrace the technology, they had to have empathy and understand that we were trying, they were trying, and we had to have a language. So we kind of stay in the empathy stage of helping people get so they can understand, so they can even embrace the technology as it's coming so fast in different ways.
Karen, we're going to have you lead us in downward dog as our next.
I kept going, and I stayed in the back of the room and tried not to look in the mirrors. But yeah, I encourage you to go to yoga. You can learn some lessons besides just stretching. There's a lot of lessons in yoga.
There absolutely are. So, and I'll invite anyone else to step up and speak.
Sure. Just curious, how many of y'all have a teenage child by any chance? do they know how to write a check? Right? I mean, it's beyond me. You know, when we look at some of these things, you know, I'm of a certain age where when I went to high school, we still had home ec. We had home ec and shop as options. And that's all gone by the wayside. And what we don't have is a class that teaches any form of financial literacy. So these kids don't understand how to write a check. They don't know what a budget is. They, you know, let alone things like how credit cards work or what interest rates are. So now you fast forward and we're working on the collegiate level where, by the way, if you're a high school aged quarterback graduating high school, going into college, if you're not making a minimum $750,000 a year in college, then you did something wrong. Now, I'm not going to argue the merits of how much money is being paid to the kids. That's great. But they don't know what they're doing with it. And at 18, 19, 20 years old, you don't need a parent to sign off on contracts. You don't need a parent to sign off on trusts or certain deals. And if you look at the number of professional athletes that file for bankruptcy, and I'm literally just giving away my entire afternoon speech, so you know, don't show up. It's going to be awful. But you can look at 30% of all professional athletes across all sports file for bankruptcy within 10 years of retiring. What's going to happen to an 18-year-old who has no idea? You know, we have a kid we saw who got his first NIL deal, got paid $100,000, got paid on a Monday. By Friday, he spent it. Yeah. And we had some choice words with his agent and said, well, at least I'm sure y'all put aside some money for taxes. He's like, it'll be fine. He'll take care of it on his next deal. Well, let's see. Paying money for something future to cover something that passed, there's a word for it, and it sounds like Ponzi. It doesn't work. You can't pull money from one thing to cover something else. And to be honest, this kid's not the sharpest tool in the shed anyway. How he got a deal in the first place is beyond me. But these opportunities are out there, and we focused on this saying there's got to be a better way of just teaching the basics, right? Just teaching things to help engage these kids, but it has to be done in a way that's, you know, engaging and enterprising and really holds their attention. Because again, having as a father of a 16-year-old, that boy's got the attention span of a goldfish. So it's really just finding that niche and getting in there and trying to work through it.
Okay. So what gap are we feeling in education technology? So this is going to come as a surprise to nobody, but it's not actually a new problem. Going back all the way to when Gutenberg created his press, the way that people gain knowledge changed forever, right? You used to have to come to the sage on the stage, the person who had the knowledge, and listen to them speak to learn anything. Then when you could print books for cheap, right, anybody could buy the book and get that knowledge. And we thought, great, everyone's going to be educated now. Didn't work that way. It turns out you still need the professor, the faculty member, the person who has the knowledge to help you understand the content, right? Reading the book isn't enough unless you're a genius. So fast forward to where we are today, and technology has sped up the process. And the age-old problem that we're really trying to answer is, how do we get access to the people that want to learn something or need to learn something, who are not able to travel to be in front of the sage on the stage, who will give the lecture notes and guide them through the book and the content and whatever your discipline is, the lab material. How do we do that? The online learning space is the way that we do that, the learning management system. It's not perfect. If it were, we would pack up our shop and be like, here you go, we're done. So we still have a lot of ways to go, right? But that is really where we step in. I myself was able to do my doctorate because I was able to do it online almost entirely. Without that opportunity, without the ability to do that, I wouldn't have been able to achieve that dream. And that's at, the terminal degree level. What about students who need to finish high school, who aren't able to travel, who live in rural areas? That creates a whole nother set of questions about accessibility to internet and be able to access those things. Those students need to be able to access that information too, right? At the elementary level, middle school, high school, higher ed, all levels of education, being able to get students to the source of knowledge, right, and information, that is the space that we fill, right? I will pass it on then to my next panelist.
Thanks very much. So for us, it's all around having students either change their trajectory or confirm their trajectory. And that's why we focus our programs on students in grade 10 and 11. Several years ago, SHAD's been around for 43 years, and at one point it included grade 12 students. But a grade 12 student coming in the July after they finish grade 12 knows what they're going to go study at college or university that fall. So for us, it's around opening their eyes to what's possible. And so, for example, I will go to one of our alumni events on a university or college campus, and I'll talk to students and say, how did you decide what to study? And it's very common for someone to say to me, well, I thought I was going to be an engineer. So all through high school, I studied to get myself ready for an engineering program. I went to SHAD at University X, and I was exposed to health sciences. I didn't even know there were careers in health science. So I changed my trajectory, changed the courses I take in grade 12, and I applied to a health science program at a different college or university. And so for us, it's that broadening horizons. We're looking for students who are curious, and I'll talk later on about the type of students. But for us, that's the gap we're trying to fill, is trying to have people and students exposed to a broad cross section. And so like the previous panel, we used to be STEAM. We're now, we used to be STEM, and now we're STEAM. We're STEAM plus entrepreneurship. And so for us, it's that the gap I think we're filling is that narrow-minded focus that we think many students have today, where they already know what they think they're going to do. So how can we help change their trajectory, which ultimately changes their lives?
Great, thank you.
Hamster.
Thank you for your thoughtful answers. We have basic skill teaching, we have changing trajectories, all really fundamental in terms of, what progressive learning and certainly progressive learning for, the future is. And I just did want to speak also to, my own perspective is I feel the gap that I'm addressing is really in professional development as, all of us are advancing our careers, trying to imagine who we are in our next, if not third, fourth, fifth profession, really taking a more holistic approach to that. There is a total wealth of professional development courses, certificates, and content out there. The edX's, the Coursera's, the LinkedIn Learnings, which all have their merit. But more and more, a lot of these learning platforms have become more passive. It's watching videos. It really requires, a lot of self-direction from the learner themselves, right, in terms of however they want to professionally develop. And I think the other area of learning that's really progressed in the last decade is around self-development and mindfulness, right? We've had conferences like Wisdom 2.0, John Kabat-Zinn becoming, a household or maybe more of a household name, really focused on, as a person, who am I? How do I want to show up in this world? And how do I actually stay grounded in who I am, right, as I move through my professional life, through my personal life? But largely in my experience, I've seen that kind of these two pools of professional and then in personal development to still not largely be integrated. So the focal point of my PhD research and really the whole person professional development programs that Impellos develops is really honoring that, sure, we're trying to get that next job, or we're trying to be, education influencers. But again, equally paying support and providing guidance to learners of how do we be authentic to ourselves? How in our professional development do we also self-challenge ourselves, learn about parts of us that we may not feel comfortable, and develop ourselves personally so that we can show up more fully in our professional persona. So that's the gap. All right, we're gonna move this a step further and I think really start to dig into, for each of us, we all have very unique focuses. And as Lisa said here, I think most of us are recognizing that, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to create a problem, right, that isn't a problem, or a problem that is already, that we're all facing in the education and learning space. But this question is really asking, how do each of you, maybe in your own perspective or with your EdTech company, really evolve to meet the changing landscape or situational dynamic in education today? And maybe I'll invite Tim, would you like to speak to this one first?
So as I mentioned, SHAD's been around for more than 40 years, so it has evolved significantly, and some of it's the very basic stuff, going from STEM to STEAM plus entrepreneurship. I think two of the biggest things that we've done in terms of evolution is first off saying who comes to our program. This summer we'll have about 1,500 students from across Canada. And so we have started a very deliberate process to say those 1,500 students need to look like the Canadian youth population. And we'll talk a little bit later. We're going to give you each an example on a specific learner, and I'll address one of those. But that's the first thing. And so SHAD used to be very much that you applied, it was based on marks. And the secret now that we don't really share completely is we ask students to provide their transcripts, because at the end of the day, we are running a program at colleges, so we need to make sure they've got a basic academic understanding. And now we throw the marks out. And we want to know about the student, and we want to know what they're doing outside of the classroom specific to their circumstance. And so we are asking for people to tell us, yeah, it might be that they're in 7 clubs and 7 sports teams, or they might be someone who's in a single parent family, comes home at 2:30 in the afternoon after school, helps her siblings with their homework, cooks dinner, and has a part-time job. We view that just as important as the student who's got all the special extra curricular activities. The second thing we've adapted, which I'm sure many of you have, is during COVID, we had to move our 2020 and then our 2021 program online. And I moved it, what was for 40 plus years, a month-long residential program, now to an online version. That means this summer, we actually now are able to offer both a concurrent in-person and virtual program. So there are students that, because of circumstance, it might be religious, it might be part-time jobs, it might be caring for siblings, it might be because they're an athlete and so have to have their weekends free. We now offer SHAD in both an online and an in-person program. And so I suppose, like many of you, that was, for us, that's been one of the silver linings of COVID, is we've learned how to deliver our specific intended impacts for participants, but do it through a digital offering, which allows us to reach many more students.
What we do is, our big belief is if we can teach mindset, skills, and tools, people can embrace their creative capacity. And we've had the privilege to work with different universities, and a really impactful moment for me is when we take design thinking methodologies and connect them with improv and the impact that can have. And we were asked to, actually it was the university I got my doctorate at, come and help some university faculty who were really struggling with, it's 2019, and they're saying students don't want to come to class. Why can't we do it virtually? And this is even before COVID. And so they said, can you come up and just work with the faculty? So when we got there, we kind of met a hostile group of faculty. And so I just want to call Richard out there in the back. He's on my team. Richard, who's a actual phenomenal improver. He goes around the nation doing improv. So he helped us, and we just said, let's just take them through some improv experiences. And what we called step in, step out. Very simple process where it makes sense, just total sense at the beginning till the end of a 3-minute experience. It's confusing. And we just had faculty sit down and say, what was that like? And they're like, why would you confuse us? This wasn't fair. Da, da, da. We said, but think about how can you apply this to your classroom, to your students? And through the conversation, because short improv type experiences can really evoke a lot of conversation, and we're all about evoking creativity. So our people we work with develop competencies in creative thinking and innovative practices. And as they started to talk, they started to say, wow, maybe this is how our students feel. We're giving them instruction, and they're telling us something different, and we're not even connecting. And it was so impactful. By the end of our 3-day session with them, they were saying that one activity, that one improv activity opened our minds. And so we have really tried to develop a very easy, simple, someone said easy is not simple. We learned that. Ways to help faculty and students, parents develop mindset, skills, and tools that they can begin to understand each other. They get language to begin talking, so they can start to address the rapid changes coming. Because if you can't talk about it and you can't empathize with each other, you don't even know what's happening. It's like the lady that told me in the yoga class, if you just listen a little better, maybe you could get it. That okay, I think I was listening quite well, but I didn't know the language. So that's one thing that we really try to focus on, and we've had a lot of feedback that was so helpful. Wow, I need to get out of my own way, or I guess I don't need to know everything before I start, or wow, this is more connected than I thought. And it's always very inspiring and humbling to me when I realize we all want the same thing if we can just create language. And that's one thing we love doing. And I just want to just encourage, if there's any way you can help people understand, get in the same language and develop empathy for what's really happening, what's really going on, so that the pathway is clear, and you've created a pathway actually, so people can embrace the rapid change that's coming. That's sort of what we do.
That might be tough to follow. That's phenomenal. Maybe it's a tad cliched, but you hear the expression, the only constant is change, right? And I mean, in the world of college athletics, I don't know how closely y'all follow it, but they're at the point right now where the NCAA is asking for congressional help to try to step in and sort of, not quite oversee and overrule how NIL is developed throughout the colleges. But, we're sick of hearing the phrase, it's the Wild West. It's a very uncharted territory right now. And the first thing that we did was we started working with state legislatures and worked, the state of New York, Florida, North Carolina, Texas, to put in a clause in the state NIL bills mandating a certain minimum amount of financial literacy and mental health well-being as part of any kind of NIL requirements. Like, it's great if the kids have the ability to get paid, whether it's through corporate sponsorships or building their own businesses, but they need to be able to have a tool set to help them handle all the stresses and everything that comes with it. Okay. And you're asking, we're literally sitting here, it's the beginning of March Madness, right? And we're going to watch these kids on TV. We just saw the Super Bowl, and you watch, you can say these gentlemen playing, in the Super Bowl, and in your mind, they're your peers, right? They're your same age, until you realize they're all in their early 20s, the majority of them. Like Travis Kelce might have been 80, but the rest of these guys are all fairly young kids, and we take that for granted. And now when you take it back, a further level, and you're talking about the college level, the mindset is just not there yet. They haven't built up the tolerances, the abilities to navigate so many different worlds and all the additional stresses. You're asking them, in theory, to be students first and foremost. That might be debatable, but for the most part, a lot of these kids, there's a reason the Academic All-America Award exists. There are kids who are really unbelievable scholars. And given that 99.5% of these kids are not going to play in a professional sport, what they can learn during this time period will carry them forward well beyond their graduation. But if you're asking them to be scholars, you're asking them to be athletes. Now you're also asking them to be business owners to some degree, or social media influencers. And somewhere along the lines, you're saying, oh, by the way, you should also have a social life and be a kid. It's just not happening, right? It's just so much pressure you're putting on them. So anything that we can do to help alleviate that and help them navigate the waters, that's our focus. And it really comes from us being able to go out to current professional athletes saying, hey, what would have helped you? What would have helped you for your transition? People don't realize that for college athletes or professional athletes, when they hang up their gear for the last time, it's psychologically very much akin to soldiers coming off of tours of duty. Right? This is what you've been doing for as long as you know. This is your one mission. And now you're talking about somebody who's maybe 25, 26, 27 years old and saying, all right, good luck for the rest of your life. So, we have a responsibility to lay the groundwork and do something to help make that transition easier as best as possible and help make them literally functional cogs in our society.
I go next? Yeah. So the changing landscape in education is that artificial intelligence is having a moment. And it is met with equal parts excitement and terror on the part of educators everywhere through all levels of education. So at our company, through the leadership of our head of product, we have built and incorporated into the learning management system as part of the solution artificial intelligence tools, right? And we're pairing that with trusted infrastructure, right? To make sure that we're doing it with a nod to understanding where artificial intelligence can fail people, right? So trusted infrastructure that, we are using as a guideline to build how we're incorporating it with two focuses. The first is to help instructors teach the course, make it easier for them to do that, or help them organize it, create the scaffolding for the course and the setup of it, but also for making it a better experience, a learning experience for students. So whereas some folks are talking about plagiarism detection and detecting where AI has created the content, we've chosen not to take that stance. What we've done instead is make it possible for instructors to create authentic assessments so that students actually have to do their own work to submit the assignment or post to the discussion. And it isn't just, let me go find the answer from ChatGPT. It's, I have to use my brain to answer this question the way it's written. So that sort of trustworthy AI framework, the approach to thought leadership and building it into the product is something I'm really proud to be of a team that's doing it that way, looking at it that way. And it's actually the only LMS in the market that has AI incorporated into the core solution. So that is where we are meeting the evolving landscape.
Thanks, Lisa. AI is definitely having a moment. So. Yeah, and from Impello's perspective, how we're meeting the changing workplace and professional development, is really in kind of the educational pedagogy or the structure that I've created. And before I speak a word or two about that, I just wanted to highlight these are probably all things that we know that are changing in the workplace, but just to really put it out there, workplace longevity. Right. My father worked at Procter & Gamble for over 25 years, and some of us are really dedicated and have been in our organizations for a long time. But most of us, again, have recreated ourselves, stepped into new careers, new companies many, many times, and probably many, many more times. So it's just a shifting workplace. Secondly, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, everyone here knows how much under fire that's really come into, and especially the last 3 to 6 months. And it's important, right? To me, DEI is inviting voices and perspectives into educational and learning experiences. Of course, how we structured that at a university or with corporate DEI, is getting dismantled to a large degree. But the fundamentals of DEI are still really important. It's evolving. And with Impello, what I'd really like to highlight is, with the self-design studio or the professional design studio program that I've created, we really serve kind of the evolution in the workplace and the evolution of the learner in two different ways. So just to ground this for everyone, my program is currently offered through the Rochester Institute of Technology. It's a semester-long class where our lead facilitator and students meet every week on Zoom, but it is a synchronous meeting for 2 hours, and then there's continued work, in between the sessions for the semester. And the core structure that we've built is, we have a syllabus, we have a course flow, but in my guidance and training of our facilitators, there's a lot of agency that's given to the facilitator. So, every cohort we've had has had a different personality. Sometimes there are more workplace issues that are brought in. Sometimes there's cultural integration issues that are brought in. So our facilitator really has, the power to kind of change direction of our content, bring up new discussion topics and new ways for students to engage so that, the course really meets what are evolving needs for that cohort. And then quickly, I just wanted to speak from the learner perspective. You know, Self-Design Studio is really built on peer learning. It's created as a learning community where everyone sits in a circle, including the facilitator. And, you know, the way that the course is run is that we are really here to teach each other, right? We each have our own individual strengths, our weaknesses, our life experiences. So our facilitator certainly brings guidance and learning as we move through the course. But again, you know, it is really based on peer and self-learning. And a lot of deliverables of the course are built that the student can chart, all right, you know, my goal is to get my first job. My goal is to move from being an individual contributor to, you know, being a manager. So, you know, how we meet kind of the evolving landscape is a facilitator supports each student in creating their self-guided plan and really how they develop towards that professionally and personally. So, all right, I'm going to take a brief pause. We've shared a lot here, and I just wanted to get a raise of hand. Did people resonate with kind of what's been shared from different perspectives here on stage? Okay, great. We're looking out into the light, but I do see a lot of hands. I'm going to invite our panelists to answer one last question more from the learner experience and then open up to Q&A. So for those of you who raised your hands or who didn't, if there's, you know, a question you'd like to direct to one of us or to the group, start formulating that. After this next question, I'll certainly open up to the audience. All right, and that brings us to, I want everyone here to kind of flip the hat a little bit. You know, we've talked a lot about what we offer in EdTech, you know, how our learning experience is unique. And the question I'd like to pose here is, can you share a story or a learning of how your educational technology was really transformational for a learner or for a customer? And Steve, would you like to go first?
I do want to go first.
Okay.
Can I go?
Go,
first?
go,
I'm
go.
really excited about it. Okay, thank you. I am a little bit. So I travel a lot. Before I took on this role, I was an individual contributor, and I would travel to visit customers a lot all over the place. And when I would check into my room at the hotel, the person checking me in would look at my corporate card, and it would say Blackboard Inc., and they'd say, you work for Blackboard? I said, yes. The Blackboard? Yes, the Blackboard. You're the only reason I can go to school, because I have to work here to support my family, to support my parents, my child. And because your stuff is online, I can go to school. I can't even tell you what that means. That's our why. That's why we do what we do. And so those kinds of stories, and I've gotten more and more of them over the years as I've done this, is really what makes this worth doing. Thank you for letting me go first.
Thank you, Lisa. Can you follow that act, Steve?
You guys are killing me. All right. So part and parcel of what we do with our education platform, we travel a lot of the universities and lecture with the athletes in the athletic departments. And I was speaking at Texas Tech, and I asked the athletes, I said, do you know why companies want to hire athletes? I was like, yeah, because we're team oriented. Yes. We're good at putting in long hours. Yes. We're team players. Yes. Like, so I let them throw out everything, and then I looked at them and like, it's because you're all a bunch of losers. And that room went silent. Like, and I let it sit in for a minute. So they're like, what do you mean? So let me ask you a question. How many of you guys have lost a game? How many of y'all lost a match? Like, I saw your basketball game last night. Not good. Not good. All right. Did you quit? Did you say, that's it, I'm done with my sport? No, you came out, you watched tapes, and you went out and you played again. I spent the better part of 30 years in hedge funds and private equities and marketing and sales. And I assure you, I lost more sales than I closed. But the difference was the sales that I closed were so outsized to everything else that it gave me a really nice career. I said, companies want that ability. They want to see that you're resilient, that you can bounce back, that you're not going to crumble. And all of a sudden, slowly, the light bulbs kind of went off. They're like, oh, he's not calling us losers. You know, it's like, yeah, you guys are bringing something to the table here and making that connection with them. And what ends up happening with our platform is the corporate partners we work with
will reach out and say, do us a favor, run us a screen on D1 athletes who are accounting majors, because most of these guys are not going into professional sports. That's fine. But they want them because they bring those skill sets, and we're able to translate that to those kids and help these kids get jobs. Then we're doing something, far above and beyond what we had hoped to do with our platform. So it's being able to take it to the next level and help kids, and then say, all right, now we need to teach you guys how to do a resume. And most important, we need to teach you how to actually engage in a conversation with a recruiter, not via text, not Snapchat or whatever other garbage. You're going to actually use real words from your own mouth. It's a lost skill set, man, but God bless it. Like, being able to do that and get that out there for them makes all the difference in the world. So that's what really kind of gets us going.
A lot of what we do is help organizations launch innovation initiatives, which almost always means putting a design thinking innovation lab inside their organization. And we've done this with a large healthcare system that also had a university attached to it. And so I was in the lab, and we got a call from a medical device company, and Walter is the name. And he said, hey, Karen, I'd like to come bring my team to your lab, and we want to go through design thinking. And my challenge and my goal is to, we're losing market share, and this, this company, they view themselves as a very high caliber company. He said, we're losing market share, and the only way I can think is that it's the sales reps. So I want to create a business model that extracts the sales reps. So I said, well, wait a minute, come down, and I want to take you through an empathy experience. He said, we don't need that. That sounds empathy. What's that anyway? And so oftentimes the high level execs will say that, bless their hearts. And I just, please, just come down and we'll take you through an empathetic experience so you can really answer the mother of all questions of what's really going on. So he agreed. So he came down with his team, and we got them in surgery rooms, operating rooms, with teams using their equipment. And the operating teams knew that somebody was observing. They didn't know who it was. So right off the bat, they start using their devices. And this is difficult to use because the base had to go, the top had to snap in. If it was the wrong top, it didn't work, and da-da-da-da. And they're like, this stupid company. If it wasn't for the sales reps, we would have bailed on these guys a long time ago. And the sales reps were praised here, and the sales reps were praised there. And get the sales rep on the phone. While they observed 4 surgeries, same thing. And so as Walter and his team came back to the innovation lab, they said, we just can't believe it. We were so wrong. If I'd have done what I wanted to do, I would have created a way that we could have operated without sales reps. And he said, we need to figure out a simpler way to make it easy for operating teams. And they did. They were inspired by a children's clothing company that has called Geranimals. Yes. And the line on the
I'm sorry. Yeah, Geranimals.
No, my brother wore them. But there's a lot. There's the tags have like a line in the top, and the skirt or pants have a line. You match them up. They didn't exactly use animals, but they went back and to their own lab and made some changes and really rough prototypes and showed them to the doctors and the surgery teams. They said, this is awesome. And he came back and said to me, wow, I can't believe we didn't understand what our own problem was. And that's what really inspires me. We hear over and over again as we take people, teach them through design thinking methodology so they can actually function in a rapidly changing world. The messages we get, people saying, I didn't understand it. I thought I knew. And the whole point is, let's find out what's really going on so we can solve what really needs to be solved and stop solving problems that no one really wants solved or creating solutions that nobody really wants. And so that's really what's inspiring to me, is learning from people we work with, faculty, staff, parents, so many parents, or people leading organizations, helping them to get language and a space where they can stop and pause and really understand what's happening before they move forward. Because in reality, none of us really know what's happening in the world we live in. But anyway, that's it.
I'm going to tell you about 7 learners that we hope we had an impact on. Canada is the 2nd largest country in the world by geography, but we have a relatively small population, 30 odd million people. And that means they are spread out over an incredibly large geographic area. And so up in the far north of Canada, our Inuit community lives in remote places. Many of those individuals will never see what they refer to as the South, which for you would still be extremely north. And so we think we have an obligation to find learners throughout all of Canada and provide them access to our program. And so to tackle the challenge of how do you get Inuit youth to a program, we started with, we have to be trusted in that community. And so started by being invited up to co-create science camps for high school students, co-created with the Inuit community, and did that over a couple of years to build trust with the communities and the partners. And that led to last summer, working with principals in schools, identifying 7 high school Inuit youth who came to one of our programs at the University of Calgary. And so from those of you who know Calgary, think about going from Las Vegas to Calgary and then going at least that far again north is where these students came from. But it was not as simple as saying, well, we're just going to create space for you. It had to be a place where they felt comfortable. So it meant that we embedded elders from their community into our program. It meant that they could see themselves through instructors that were delivering content. It meant that we provided chaperones, so families were comfortable putting their son or daughter on a plane traveling to a part of the country that they'd never been to. The key for us, though, this is all about pathways to post-secondary. These are students who probably would never have considered going to college or university once they finished high school. And so I'm not naive. I do not think all 7 of those participants will end up in post-secondary institutions, but I bet you 1 or 2 of them will. And so I think we've had a meaningful impact. And for those that don't go on to post-secondary, they have now been connected to a community of their peers across the country. They would have been at Calgary with about 60 other people from across, our students from across the country. And we know based on our 40-plus year track record, they will stay connected to that group for the rest of their lives. I often say, I thought I was being hired to oversee a summer program. I now realize I was hired to oversee a lifelong network that starts with a summer program. So that's an example where I think we have used our program to try to change the lives of those 7 specific Inuit youth who will in turn change the lives of their peers back in their community. So that's the example I thought I would share with you today.
Thanks so much, Tim. That's really inspirational that this transformation with 7 students will certainly scale out to many more. So, and I just really like to quickly share, from, my own standpoint, with our professional design studio, we've had a lot of students share how it's been transformational for them to be able to really create a professional brand, right? To really make kind of professional advancement moves coming from a place of just having time to self-reflect about who they are and, who they are more than what their job defines them to be. And, we've had a lot of younger Gen Z students who are like, great, I'm going to start that exciting job at Steelcase, design engineering company, but I'm more than an engineer, right? I'm also a photographer, I'm a musician, and I really want to step into, my new professional life, right? Being much more the whole person that I am. And the quick story I want to share is of a young woman who came to the States from China. She came for an entrepreneurship program because she was already a serial entrepreneur. She had opened an art center, had opened cryptocurrency startups in China, and again, was just really professionally successful here in the United States. And when she came to take our course, what she really wanted to work on was the fact that she felt really divided from who she actually was. And she shared with me an interview that Time article had done for her on her, which was again, glowing, successful, entrepreneur. And she's like, I don't even know this person anymore. Right? I want to connect back to why I'm passionate being an entrepreneur and who I am. And we really use the process of the professional design studio to have her, again, do a lot of self-reflection, really speak with different people in different parts of our lives, from family to colleagues, to, even her son, who she was trying to bring over from China, so that she could build her perspective again on who she was as a person. And it was really through kind of that journey of professional development that she stepped back out. I think she's doing like a AI-backed, a startup now, but she's doing it much more from a place of, holism and authenticity. So that's the transformational story I would share. I'm conscious of the time. We're pretty much at time, and I think if people have questions, the panelists, we're happy to hang out here if you want to approach any of us. But I thought what would be meaningful to just close this panel is for each of us to maybe share just a quick insight or two, to help the audience here. What I've really heard from our discussion today is, the importance of financial literacy, of creativity and learning, of not just STEM, but STEAM, really bringing entrepreneurship in, as well as leadership and, emerging technologies. So I'd like to just invite each of you, again, share one or two insights that you think might be helpful for the audience here as they kind of make their journey through kind of EdTech and education. All right, won't put anyone on the spot here, but would anyone like to just speak first? Okay.
I can't speak first all the time.
But Lisa wants to speak first.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Okay. Twist my arm, why don't you? Know why you're doing this. Why do you want to be in education technology, whatever your focus is? I think most of us know that we are connected to something bigger than ourselves, and that gives us purpose, particularly when it gets really hard. And it gets really hard in all of our spaces all of the time. And so for me, that's really what I would want to leave you with. Know why you're doing this, and that helps drive the next step.
Yeah, I'll leverage off that. We have 5 intended impacts that we have for program participants, and we evaluate everything we do over the course of that month-long program through those 5 intended impacts. So it's why are you doing what you're doing?
I think what I've learned is people care about what they help create, and they're responsible when they care. So if we can create ways to help people create things or create a pathway so they can create, we will develop a population that cares.
The difference between passion and mission is 2 letters, right? There's nothing wrong with infusing what you're doing with your mission, driving it from a passionate state, right, and building it out. And then we'll obviously lead into my extremely riveting conversation this afternoon. So I'm not going to say anything else for now. Just don't eat too much, that's all.
All right, and to close, my insight is in whatever educational experience or structure that you're building, please always build a space where learners can honor themselves, really build their self-identity and be authentic, so that they can really move forward in a way that is, meaningful and truthful to themselves. All right, with that, I really want to thank everyone here in the audience. It's been great. I want to also thank all of our panelists. Thank you for your insights. And we've got 2.5 more days here, so please feel free to catch any of us after or, in kind of lunch in the network meetings if you have questions or would like to engage further. All right, thank you very much.